Welcome everyone to our Intelligent Marketplace Management webinar. As e-commerce as a sales channel has grown and evolved in both complexity and importance, it's really required a similar evolution in the way in which brands think about managing it. So specifically, instead of throwing humans at the problem, what we're looking to address today is, are there ways to solve these inherent complexities with software? So for today, we're going to first start out by defining what we mean when we say intelligent marketplace management. What is it anyway? Then we'll go over how Pacvue is thinking about solving some of these challenges in this space. And then before transitioning to Q&A at the end, where it's your opportunity to kind of grill us and ask us any questions about the topic, Mindy and Jack are going to go over some common pain points and how technology can help you save just a tremendous amount of time and resources in managing your overall businesses. But before we transition into that, I wanted to first introduce our presenters for today. So first, you have Mindy Fashaw, who is our COO and has over 10 years of experience at Amazon with roles ranging anywhere from finance to running retail categories. One of the kind of coolest parts about today is that Mindy wrote a lot of the playbooks on things that you might come across on Amazon. So there's perhaps no one better to talk about this topic for this webinar than Mindy. Mindy also led a $1 billion business while at Newell Brands. So she's just really bringing a unique POV in terms of a retailer and a manufacturer perspective on managing businesses online. Next, Jack Lindberg is a product manager here at Pacvue. Jack joined Pacvue in the CS org, but he has a lot of experience in working with brands of all sizes and advising on winning strategies. Since transitioning to his new product role, he's just been really monumental in driving our product vision forward. Last, I am Riku, and I'm an account director here on the managed services team. I work with our enterprise clients to help manage their retail media presence. Before Pacvue, I worked on the manufacturer side at P&G, where I led their home care category on Amazon. So I have firsthand experience in managing and owning businesses online. So collectively, I think we bring a unique perspective, since we've seen firsthand the good old days of e-commerce when software just simply wasn't available to help address some of the pain points and points of friction in managing online businesses. A bit about our company. Pacvue started out as a software solution for Amazon paid search, but we've since built a comprehensive retail media platform by expanding to other platforms like Walmart, as you see here, Instacart, Criteo, eBay, Citrus. And overall, we've really expanded to just being a kind of one-stop shop for retail media in general. We also have display advertising now, but we acknowledge that there also needs to be a software solution to managing the overall business outside of just advertising. Thus, you see our flywheel captures this end-to-end cycle all the way from advertising to total e-commerce management. And you see all the platforms that we support. That's one of the primary benefits of a unified software provider. The learning curve on each new platform can be steep, but Pacvue's kind of whole value add there is that we have the same look, touch, and feel across all the platforms, which means that as you know how to use our Amazon product, it's a very quick ramp to using a Walmart product, an Instacart product. You become familiarized with the product, you can manage pretty much every platform very quickly. So for this next section, I'm going to hand it off to Mindy so she can tell you what we mean by intelligent marketplace management.
Thanks, Riku. So, you guys wouldn't be here today if you didn't already know that e-commerce today is just more complicated than it's ever been. And, there's a lot of key factors that play into this, but a lot of it comes down to what tools do you have available to manage your business and to manage it holistically and at scale across your organization, let alone externally with your retailer partners, right? Or customers, I should say. So, as it stands today, performance is likely being tracked manually across several different spreadsheets internally. You could have some degree of sophistication in terms of having an analytics team that's able to somewhat programmatically pull some of that data out of Amazon. But likely you're still having to piece together information through various spreadsheets and different data sources. And as you know, it takes a lot of time to manage multiple platforms and prioritize all of your tasks. There's multiple tools that are needed to monitor your business holistically, whether you're trying to measure, Buybox ownership, pricing, track pricing and changes, if you have MAP policies, et cetera, or margin challenges with your retailers, and then inventory in general. And then product readiness tends to be split across different teams internally. And then just thinking about tools that do exist today, there's few, if any, that really house everything in one place. And so you're likely working with, multiple different tool providers to track all these different components of your business. And then oftentimes, teams are aligned with the same goals, but sometimes org structure and access to information can get in the way. I can't tell you how many times, I've been in a meeting in the past where I'm really trying to drive toward a business solution, and the meeting instantly gets derailed by having, mismatches in data sources. And this can look differently at different organizations, right? I can only speak about, the ones that I've sat in, but I worked at a company that was built by a series of acquisitions where the backend was never fully integrated. So if we were just talking about internal purchase orders on a Monday morning, I didn't have a single source of truth that I could go to internally to say, how did my Amazon purchase orders come in across the different business units? I actually really had to rely on that data from the retailer. So, bringing everything together and orienting teams around a single source of truth can really allow teams to be more effective and getting, to the root cause of business decisions and business issues faster. Another challenge today, as I'm sure you guys are well aware of, is the disparate data sources. And this exists within each retailer. And then think about what this might look like across various different retailers. So as Riku mentioned before, the beauty of Pacvue is the ability to pull these disparate data sources together across these different retailers to really deliver the same look and feel for the end user, so that as you're using, a software solution that's more encompassing cross-functionally, you're really able to keep your teams on the same page where they're all looking at the same data set and they understand, how this carries over across different retailers.
Yeah, so once you have access to that data, one of those struggles that I've seen a lot of brands interact with is, I have all the data, how do I piece it together? How do I create a story that tells me not only what's happening, but what I should do next? Where are there opportunities? Where are there potentials for growth? And I think that's where we see the future of e-com going, in that aggregating all this data isn't enough. That's not going to tell the people on the ground, what do I have to do to get results? What do I have to do to ensure holistic e-commerce growth? And that's where I think Pacvue Commerce and an intelligent marketplace management solution comes into play. So taking those sorts of data inputs and building on prescriptive, predictive analytics, not just to show you what's happening, but what you should do to get ahead. And when you see all those data sources, that sort of data democratization across different stakeholders in the organization typically falls flat. When we see people working cross-functionally for e-commerce success, those that have achieved the greatest amount of growth are those that find that ability to share data across the different functions in the organization. So we have a nice little chart here that highlights, just some of the potential data sources that each individual stakeholder within an organization might need. And because these all come from different sources, typically one person doesn't have access to all of them. They don't have a place where they can go to say, how do I get all of the pieces I need in one spot? How do I know what to do for my specific function based on the data that I need from all those other places? And that's what we're attempting to solve here today.
So this slide is really meant to just show, the complexity that has really come about from the rise of all these new advertising platforms, right? And it's not to say these capabilities didn't exist before. The difference is, in 2020, a lot of new retailers and platform providers opened up self-service access. So, before 2020, Amazon was the only, paid search platform that had self-service access. Now that's table stakes across all these different retailers, right? So not only do you have new platforms launching, you've got new products launching within specific platforms, and then you've got new features and functionality launching as well. So the complexity of this space is just continuing to grow, and that's just talking about the advertising piece, right? Then there's the importance of bringing together the rest of the business. With all this access to real-time information across all these retailers, teams can be much more efficient and effective if they're really focused on the same set of information to make these more holistic cross-functional business decisions. Really what a solution like Pacvue Commerce is going to do, which is, we're going to get into the details of this in a second here, but it's really bringing together those cross-functional capabilities. So, everything from your internal category management to your supply chain and finance team, sales and shopper marketing, your brand teams, and what that really means is bringing together information such as, pricing in the marketplace. What does the 3P landscape look like? Who's owning the buy box? Hopefully it's you as a one-party seller, or, third-party seller if it's your brand, but hopefully it's not something else that's coming in there, disrupting your buy box ownership. But if it is, you really want a holistic view of what's causing that disruption. From a supply chain perspective, looking at POs over time, weeks of cover trended, the ability to address chargebacks and shortages in a more automated way instead of having to manually cut tickets. And then there's bringing in, your full funnel advertising, your promotions, detail page content, etc.
So now that we went through, how we think about intelligent marketplace management or what it means, in this next section, I'm going to go over Pacvue's vision, how we're approaching this challenge. The digital shelf is how your brand or product is going to be found. And we talk about the concept of retail readiness as being a prerequisite in winning e-commerce. That requires a coordination between the various teams in your org, all the way from content management, supply chain management, advertising, finance, sales. And really the challenge is just the amount of disparate data sources to manage all of this, kind of to Jack's point earlier. So our core ethos is to bring everything into one platform, one-stop shopping, if you will. We'll go through this more in depth in the next section, but the Pacvue Commerce solution gives you one platform for tracking promos, monitoring your catalog, viewing vital metrics on your supply chain, providing aggregated dashboards, right? So instead of having to navigate in Vendor Central or ARAP to a bunch of different reports, pulling it into Excel, as we'll go into here in a second, having everything just in one place. And then also providing alerts to let you know what you should do rather than having to do that analysis yourself, finding the action that's needed to do, and obviously wasting time that you can automate. This is our Pacvue Commerce vision. So we know that e-commerce is not just Amazon. The landscape is quickly moving, and platforms like Walmart, Target, Kroger are growing in importance for brands' top lines and kind of where they're seeing their growth, right? So normally or historically, when we talk about e-commerce, Amazon kind of gets the disproportionate share of the attention. But we know that the landscape is quickly growing, evolving, so there needs to be a solution for these in addition to just Amazon. Just a personal anecdote, when I was on the Amazon desk, a large portion of my week was just running reports to find out what I needed to do, right? And it's just clear that this needs to be automated for any type of scalable business, devote more time to strategies and things that are actually going to move your business. The report generation analysis work that can and should be automated for business owners looking to gain an edge, just a core component of kind of how we're looking at things. How do you know when you should take action? Notifications will let you know what's going on with your business, particularly things that require your immediate attention and action. It's just a huge help when, instead of you having to kind of find out what you should do, a system is automatically telling you, hey, here are the priority items for you for that day or for that week. And those of you who have submitted tickets on Vendor Central can empathize with how monotonous and time consuming that process can be. So fortunately, we have automated this so you can submit contact us tickets individually or automatically in the platform for various issues. So in summary, this is what Pacvue Commerce does for brands. It is the marketplace management end-to-end, from Buybox tracking to shelf monitoring to managing profitability. Pacvue Commerce gives you everything you need to manage your business in one consolidated platform. So I'll now pass it back to Mindy and Jack to chat through various use cases in intelligent marketplace management. So think of this section as a lot of the pain points that we've experienced firsthand and how we're kind of looking at an intelligent marketplace management as a way for them, or for one of those to alleviate those pain points for you via software.
Cool, thanks, Riku. So as Riku mentioned, Jack and I are going to take you guys through some use cases. So we'll start with the sales dashboard and end with promotions. But I just wanted to share, I genuinely am so excited about this product. One, because a few years ago I would have been the customer for this product, and I just think about all the things that I could have done, and how much more efficient I would have been in my day-to-day if I had something like this available to me. But the other thing that I love about this product, and this is really just a testament to Pacvue and how we operate, is that, our dev team moves so quickly that 2 months ago when I got in to see this product, it was just nowhere near where it is today. So, when I got in to really see the updates, I just got so excited by all the capabilities that are there. And that's just today. That's just our V1 version, right? Our dev team moves at lightning speed. So we're going to continue to iterate and build on this. And what I really want this audience to know is that the way that we build our product is based on feedback from our clients, or even feedback from people in the industry who would be consumers of this product. So, we'll go through this, but, if you guys have ideas, specific requests, if you guys want to drop that in the chat, that would be awesome. It may already be in our platform, but it might be something that, we would look to build very quickly. So we'd love to hear your feedback as we go through this. Cool. So starting with the sales dashboard, honestly, this is what excited me the most about our product. I was typing up my notes and I was like, wow, this feels like a central command center. And then I looked up and noticed it's actually called Central Command, this dashboard. But really what got me so excited about this is I really envisioned myself sitting down on a Monday morning with a cup of coffee and being able to just quickly in a glance understand what happened in my business over the past week, from sales to inventory, et cetera. I mentioned at the top of the call, not even being able to get aggregated purchase order information across the business. This dashboard in and of itself is just, essentially what I tried to build in my role at Newell, over a 3.5-year period with a really strong data analytics team. And we ended up building this in various different Excel spreadsheets and models. And we probably got 40% of this, right? Some weeks I couldn't even get that total view of purchase orders internally from our systems because my team didn't have the time to manually input it. So, for me, as a leader of a sales team, this would have been the best tool that I could have had, because I could have come in, easily seen, where my gaps were for the week, all the outliers, and being able to kind of root cause changes in sales in a single tool with a few clicks of a button. That really would have allowed our team to be more focused on driving the business and driving results and driving solutions, as opposed to having to pull down all this different data, all these different spreadsheets to try to, even just allude to some of these data points.
Awesome. So I think once you have all that data in there, here the alerts and notifications section is where Pacvue Commerce becomes immediately helpful, right? So there are a couple of options or ideas listed here for things we're already running alerts for, and I'll just walk you through like some specific examples of how these alerts would have saved some of my advertisers from my customer success days a lot of pain and a lot of money. So the first one, items not available to sell, happens pretty frequently, right? Your detail page disappears, your item gets taken down, you lose the item for some reason, right? And typically when I get on a call with someone, it's because they've emailed me and they say, hey, my ad performance is terrible and I can't figure out why. We go through the whole process of looking at all their campaigns, everything's set up really well, and guess what? Their hero ASIN is down. The page has been taken down. They have the Amazon blue dogs. And being alerted to that in advance, getting ahead of that problem would allow them to solve that. Hey, my hero ASIN's down. How do I pivot my strategy? What do I do to replace that ASIN in real time to keep up with demand, rather than reactively coming to me a week later after they've had a problem to sort through it? Changes in traffic, I think, is a really big one, especially when we're dealing with like the virality of products across a large number of other e-com sites, namely TikTok as the biggest example. So one of the questions I get asked all the time is, how do I know if my product is going viral on TikTok? And one of the easiest ways to do that is just to like track PDP traffic. So if you see a big spike day over day, Pacvue will flag that to you and say, hey, we noticed you have a 40% increase in traffic from today to yesterday. Something's happening. And I would bet it's probably because in most cases, you hit an influencer on TikTok and something went viral. And that's a really easy way to track that and keep tabs on, when do my products pick up steam on some of those external social media traffic points, that sort of downstream net impact on Amazon. For content changes and crap predictions, definitely tons of use cases here. But the most common one I've seen for content changes is you lose the buy box for a brief period of time, and then someone decides they're going to change all of your bullet points and all of your titles and all of your descriptions. And someone has to go through and re-upload all of this piece. And within Pacvue Commerce, one will alert you when those content pieces change, but two, you can automatically re-upload. You can say, hey, this change wasn't me. I just want to put my content back. Hit that one click of a button. So those are some really powerful ways those alert and notifications can quickly solve like what would be an easy fix and keep it from being a long-term problem.
All right, this one's a busy slide because I think we all know how important PO management and inventory management are, especially if you're trying to deliver sales. So as it stands today, you're using a combination of the Vendor Central UI and or spreadsheets that you can download. And then, as many of you probably know, if you want to pair any data across different functions at Amazon. So say you want to marry your sales by item with your purchase orders by item, for whatever reason, it often requires multiple manual downloads. And then God forbid you want to do that over any kind of trended time period, right? That just exponentially increases the time and the number of downloads that need to take place in order for you to do any kind of storytelling with these different data sets. So from a Pacvue commerce perspective, when it comes to purchase order and inventory management, this is our central dashboard for this portion of the tool. And then there's lots of capabilities behind just the centralized dashboard, but everything from looking at your PO confirmation rate, how that's trended over time, how efficient is your inventory, what are your stock levels looking like, what do your weeks of cover look like trended over time, looking at predictive forecasts, lost sales due to rejected purchase orders. We all know that can be a big one when it comes to inventory constraints and allocation. It'll give you a view of just inventory levels, and you can kind of see the blue and orange, that's on hand versus on order, so things that might already be in process of shipping. Out of stock rates trended over time, what Amazon's considering unhealthy inventory. So I was giving the team an example of we would have our trade teams come to us in the past with pockets of inventory that they wanted to push to Amazon for promotions, but Amazon was already sitting on heavy inventory and asking us to fund their inventory position on those same items. So just having that in a scalable way in one view, where your in-stock team or your internal demand planning team can really look at the retailer's inventory position, and really help you plan the right items that you can sell in to the customer.
Yeah, I think one of those things that Minnie mentioned about planning the right items is just figuring out how to get your item taxonomy, your catalog under control in a way that makes sense. And one of the things that I think makes that challenging is all retailers sort of do that differently. And on Amazon, those categories generally are very broad and rather unhelpful. None of my large CPG clients fit neatly into any of those specific categories and don't really describe what those items are. And where that becomes an issue is when trying to think about reporting, when trying to think about developing that lingua franca of this is how I describe my product taxonomy, my product catalog across all different views of all different data sets. That becomes very hard as none of those data sets match on how they describe the product direct from the retailer. So what Pacvue Commerce allows you to do in the catalog management space is allow you to build your own custom catalog that reflects how you as an organization and an org structure think about those products, whether that be brand, sub-brand, sub-sub-brand, category, subcategory, sub-subcategory, which is typically the 6 levels of distinction that our larger clients utilize. That becomes an option to aggregate the data at every level across every view. So every person on every team is speaking the same language. When I'm talking about this brand, I mean this specific set of products. And if you were to try to pull that direct from retailer reporting, it gets really challenging. And that's one of the problems that I think Pacvue Commerce does a really nice job of solving. Piggybacking off of that, one of the pieces that I think sort of gets undersold in terms of its value is content automation, content preparation, Amazon SEO, however you want to describe it. But the idea that what we have a hard time just explaining to our clients is how does retail readiness content, how is that worth money, right? The sort of direct link between having really good content and having good sales is a little bit tenuous for most people, and Pacvue Commerce tries to make that link, right? So we're doing that in a couple ways. One is just showing you a content score. So showing across all of your catalog, what's the score? Like using a out of 10 score, out of 10, how well are you doing? And as we do better, do we see those ASIN sale numbers improve? And typically we see that's a very firm correlation, but without tracking it, without having that unifying system, it's hard to put a monetary value behind why your copywriter and your creative team is earning their keep, Where else that comes into play is with regards to retail readiness. So typically with advertisers who are larger firms, you'll see that they have really deep catalogs, 10,000 ASINs in a catalog. And the majority of those ASINs aren't going to have content that's up to snuff, right? That's not going to be retail ready. And typically we see that, sometimes due to lack of communication, lack of awareness, we see media teams pushing products that aren't retail ready, right? They don't sort of live up to the standards that we would hope people use regarding for ASINs to advertise. And what typically happens is advertising ASINs that aren't retail ready is just as good as throwing money into a furnace. You're not going to get any return. So Pacvue has predictive alerts to say, hey, you're trying to advertise a product that only has 3 stars. Maybe you should not do that. Let's try to find another product that is in that same category that's maybe more retail ready. So trying to get ahead of those sort of issues and help retailers, help brands not waste money on products that aren't retail ready. The other piece is with regard to content change, right? When you're changing your content changes, as I mentioned previously, can come from a whole bunch of sources. They could be internally driven or driven by a reseller or Amazon or the retailer itself. So Pacvue just keeps a log of all those content changes, and the user can go through and say, hey, yes, this was me. I put through that content change, or no, it wasn't. I didn't update the image of the blue football to have all yellow photos, which is a really concrete example that happened to one of my clients. But this is one of those ways that Pacvue Commerce can reach in there and say, hey, your photos, you're describing a yellow football, you have blue photos. Maybe we should reverse that. Finally, the piece that I think is really useful is looking at reviews and ratings. One of the pieces that I think sort of gets lost in the disconnect between sales and marketing teams and product development is actually aggregating those new reviews, doing a sentiment analysis, and figuring out what are the problems, right? When I get a low review or a 1 or 2 star review, what happened? Was it because the shipment wasn't delayed? Was it because the product was expired? Was it because it broke in transit? Or is there some sort of design flaw on my product? Something that's wrong with it that needs to be fixed in order to continue selling it profitably. And most of the time, people don't look at the reviews with the frequency to catch those changes. Monitoring, hey, over the last couple of days, we saw a lot of really bad reviews. Something's up. How do I go and diagnose this and find that problem? And Pacvue is going to flag that to you in a way to help you get on top of those trends. And I think the other piece here is looking at the ratio of reviews to sales impact. So when I've started to generate good reviews or a high volume of reviews, how does that grow my sales? So we know, typically from Amazon, the Amazon Vine program, they really emphasize, here's how we're going to get a bunch of early reviews. But how do we track that ratio or relationship between reviews and revenue over time and show pretty clearly on a lot of instances that increasing the number of high quality reviews really does propel that product flywheel and continue to have it grow.
Great. So let's talk about promotions. I'm not going to beat a dead horse and talk too much about how it works today, because I think it's kind of similar to everything that we're talking about in terms of trying to do any kind of meaningful analysis by pulling data out of Vendor Central, bringing it into Excel, spending a ton of time marrying it up with other data sources, whether it's, other Amazon data sources or internal data. And that leads to a very, frustrated and probably frazzled person who's on the hook for that analysis, right? And, some use cases for me, at least, when I was looking at promotions, when I was managing the sales team at Newell for Amazon, it's really about, just starting with annual planning, right? If you're doing a detailed bottoms up annual planning process for your business, you really need to know what % of your revenue is coming from promotions, right? You don't want to be too crazy and too overly promotional, but how do you know that? How do you know what % of your prior year revenue was driven by promotions, knowing that you need to plan to comp those promotions as well? And then furthermore, how do you know from those previous promotions, what was the lift? What were the price points? What was the elasticity, et cetera? A lot of those data points are really, really important, when it comes not just to annual planning for promotions, but then actually getting to the point where you have to start executing against those promotions, right? And those things matter, understanding, current price, previous price, what was the deal type? Was it a deal of the day, or was it a coupon? Or was it a lightning deal, right? Those different categorizations of deals have the ability to drive different volume of units across those different deal types. So being able to pull all of that data together in one place, not just to plan your promotions and your sales, in the year looking forward, but also real time when it comes to executing and then reporting on how those promos performed. That's what we're building at Pacvue. So a one source of truth, bringing together all these data points, and then building on those with our capabilities to really help understand the efficacy and the performance across promotions. Okay, and then monitoring the Buybox. This is a really meaty topic here. And Buybox ownership can impact various components of the business, right? So, Jack mentioned earlier, getting these alerts and being able to get in front of some of these issues. You don't want to wait until the week has ended to find out that one of your, top sales driving items actually started losing the Buybox at the beginning of the week and you didn't catch it, right? So hopefully the alerts have allowed you to get in front of, any potential issue from a Buybox perspective. But if not, you can also log into the Pacvue commerce dashboard, and you can get kind of the lay of the land on your Buybox ownership. And it'll show you, who are all the sellers, what is the percentage of ownership, what is the projected lost sales? So that gets down to, the financial impact of your level of Buybox ownership, which obviously feeds into supply chain, right? If you're not winning the Buybox and somebody else, another customer of yours might be, and then inventory comes in and your supply chain team needs to allocate, that can throw off, especially if they have material pockets of inventory, that can throw off a lot of processes and things that you have in place internally. The other thing that Pacvue is able to do with the Buybox monitoring is also tracking price history. So, we know that that's been a challenge for a lot of brands, especially those that are MAP strict, or those that have, profitability challenges within their retailers. 9 times out of 10, a profitability issue is going to start with the price, the retail price. And, as we all know, brands and brands essentially have very little control over how retailers price. In fact, legally, they don't have any control around how retailers price. However, because price is so impactful on the profitability of the business, it is important to at least track and understand, where are prices on your items across the marketplace, and who's moving first. If somebody drove a price down, or, sometimes prices get driven up and the price might be too high. This gives you the ability to quickly analyze and view the landscape and understand what's happening.
So I think the question that Pacvue is uniquely positioned to answer, and I think has the most immediate impact for a lot of the people we talk to day over day, is, okay, I'm measuring all these things. How do I use it? How does it affect my media? How do I turn this around and make some firm positive decisions based on this information I now have at my fingertips? And I'm going to piggyback off of some of the things Mindy said to highlight some of the examples of what you could use here. So let's talk about first with promotions as an example. So you're running a coupon or you're running a deal of the day, and for that day, your profitability on that ASIN is going to change, right? So when you're setting up the promotion, you want to set a promotion where you don't cause that ASIN to crap, right? So you don't make the profitability too low for that day, where Amazon turns around and say, hey, we don't want to keep reordering because it loses us money. But also you want to change your media strategy, because your margin is going to shrink on that ASIN. So therefore, your target ROAS or target ACOS for the campaigns that support that ASIN is going to change. and having Pacvue adjust dynamically to make sure you're bidding towards some level of profitability, whether that be a target margin or a target dollar amount, is a really powerful tool to make sure your promotions go on track and you actually end up making money at the end of the promotion instead of just burning cash. Let's use another example Mindy brought up regarding Buybox. So you have a product that's, let's say, oscillating in and out of the Buybox. So every 6 hours, it's hopping back and forth between being in the Buybox and not being in the Buybox. Something that happens pretty frequently across like people who have a lot of resellers. When you're thinking about media, we're pretty used to search ads like sponsored products being sensitive to the Buybox, so we don't stress too much about spending money on ASINs that you can't buy because you don't have the Buybox. But a large number of ad units across the Amazon ecosystem aren't Buybox sensitive. So almost every ad type on DSP is not Buybox sensitive. So you could be driving a large amount of DSP traffic to an ASIN that you can't purchase because it's not in stock or there's no Buybox. Or things like sponsored brand ads, where you could run an ad with only one product showing up in that product grouping because the other two are not in the Buybox. But the ad efficacy of that is a lot lower than if you had 3 products. And being able to use that Buybox status as a trigger to say, hey, maybe I should pause the creatives that contain this ASIN because I don't have the Buybox is a great way to ensure that your ads are operating the way you're looking for. And let's do one more example, right? So let's take a look at purchase orders. So when you're thinking about purchase orders, especially as a third-party seller, but also as a vendor, you're going to get into inventory situations where you have way too much inventory on hand, right? And in those situations, there are potentially strategies in which you want to go through some process of inventory liquidation. We're trying to say, how do I increase velocity on this product so that I get to a more healthy inventory position where I can re-trigger that reorder cycle? And bidding towards liquidation is really hard because a lot of people attempt it in ways that aren't profitable. So it's sort of, how do you find the right margin? How do I find the break-even cost? And how do I continue to push my ads in a way that drives that liquidation, but not in a way that like actually loses money for the business? And this is a challenge that I think Pacvue eCommerce is like sort of uniquely positioned to solve.
So to wrap it up for today, we wanted to kind of contextualize this entire webinar within this continuum that we have here. So really the net of it is there are various levels of engagement when you're managing a business. So really brands should be thinking about how they can move right on this continuum that you see here from unresponsive to the very left, all the way to predictive. So with unresponsive, it's obviously not going to be the one that you choose or the one that the model that's going to give you winning results, right? So this could be driven by a lack of resources, lack of processes, lack of expertise, or maybe just a lack of data and insights, right? Then under reactive, you're responding to issues as they come, but it does require problem identification. So this is where a lot of brands currently are, just the kind of natural state of being right now. But this can also be addressed via automation. So yeah, you identify the problem, but can you use technology to kind of help alleviate some of the pain points when you're at this step or this stage, such as filing tickets automatically, as we mentioned, you can do via Pacvue earlier. And then proactive and predictive require sophisticated data systems to really anticipate challenges and then use technology to resolve these issues before they impact your business. This is really where we're focusing our energies as a company, right? Since eliminating business risks before they even happen is going to be the best way to make sure that you ship your biz and hit your sales targets for the year. All right, so that is it for the webinar content. Let's transition it to Q&A. Mindy and Jack, how about I fire off some questions for you, and then we kind of see whoever wants to answer them. Does that work?
Sure.
So apart from dominant retailers, what are your plans in scaling to emerging markets?
Yeah, that's, I'll take that first, Jack, and then you can come in behind me if you want. It's a great question,
okay.
Right? There's just so much opportunity in this space that, even we have a hard time prioritizing, right? So we definitely want to be everywhere that there's a need, but, obviously we have, limited resources as well, and we have to prioritize too. So I would love to be able to answer that question more specifically. If you have a specific area that you're speaking of or that you're interested in, feel free to shoot me an email, mindy@pacvue.com, and I can definitely explore that and get back to you on your specific question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think one of the places that's really interesting to look at from an emerging e-retailer's perspective is Southeast Asia. So if you want to take a look at some of the more interesting emerging retailers, take a look at those based in Indonesia or China, like Shopee or Lazada. I think those are really interesting emerging players in the space that are worth keeping an eye on.
Thank you. What about competitor intelligence?
Great question. So I think competitor intelligence means a lot of things. I think we probably need to do a little bit of backtracking as to like what competitor intelligence means. Typically what people mean when they say competitive intelligence is either like a share of voice or a share of search or like a market share estimation. Pacvue in the search product already addresses this share of voice, share of search issue with basically, as everyone in the industry does it, through like a web crawling system. Market share is a little bit more tricky to suss out. And I'll sort of let Mindy speak to that one a little bit more.
Yeah, so it is a good question. I know we kind of teed it up a little bit in the presentation, but ideally Pacvue and if you don't know, Pacvue was acquired by Assembly. I think Riku had that at the top of the presentation. So we're really looking to build holistic capabilities across the e-commerce landscape. So share of sales is obviously a really important component to building that holistic landscape. So I would say stay tuned, continue to keep an eye on the products that we're putting forward. As I mentioned, our Pacvue Commerce tool is in a really great state today, and this is just V1, but definitely plan to continue to enhance the offerings and get to that more holistic view over time.
All right, then next question. Can I pause my DSP ads automatically if I see price compression and it becomes unprofitable, or if my inventory is running low?
Thankfully, I think I did mention this, but the answer is yes to all of those. I think price compression is a really interesting one. As Mindy mentioned earlier, as a vendor, you don't have very many, if any, controls over what your retail price is, but that has a direct impact on your margin and profitability. So having the simultaneous price tracking along with using that as a media trigger is a very valuable tool to make sure you're not running DSP ads to products that are unprofitable.
I know we don't have more questions. If anybody does have a question, if they want to add it to the Q&A, we can definitely make sure that we cover it. But I know we've talked a bit about profitability, Jack, but we haven't really defined what we mean by that. So do you want to talk about whose profitability we're talking about?
Yeah, totally. So there are sort of two key players here. One is you as the brand owner. How much money goes into my pockets post-sale? The second one is the retailer profitability. So the typical metric that you see for this is called net PPM. That's the Amazon metric for profitability. It's just like per unit, how much money does the retailer make off of this sales price? And both of those things generally need to be kept in balance. And I'll talk you through the examples. So for the brand side or like user profitability, that one's pretty obvious. You don't want to sell things where you don't make any money. The other side in terms of retailer profitability is a little bit trickier, right? So on Amazon as a retailer, it's possible to sell products that are unprofitable, but extremely difficult. So typically what happens is like you wholesale a product to Amazon, Amazon buys it at X price and they sell it at Y price, which is higher. And when that margin becomes too small, Amazon turns around to the brand owner and says, hey, either you need to change the price from which we wholesale to you to give us a better margin, or we're going to stop ordering. And when they stop ordering, you're losing that potential revenue stream. So keeping tabs on what's Amazon's profitability at all times can help you get ahead of those situations and make sure you're not encountering scenarios in which your best product somehow now is not making Amazon enough money. And you need to turn around and figure out how to salvage that, either by like decreasing your costs or some sort of promotion or sale to get additional profits into Amazon's pockets.
Great, thanks.
That's also where vendor negotiations come into play, right? So if there's eroding profitability, many times they'll ask you to offset that profit gap via accruals or some type of other funding arrangements. So, it's an ongoing challenge, ongoing issue with negotiations.
But key point is you can measure both, right? The brands can measure their own profitability. by uploading some cost information, but also measure the retailer's profitability. So you're able to really make balanced decisions on, how it will impact your P&L versus your retailer's P&L.
Yeah, typically retailers' P&L is not something most brands keep really good tabs on, but I think given an easy opportunity to do that, they should. There's a lot of potential gain to do that.
All right, I think that wraps it up for the webinar, unless any last minute Q&A or questions come in. We appreciate the time, everyone, today. Hopefully you got some value out of the presentation. As Mindy mentioned, stay tuned for upcoming iterations, upcoming innovation. With that said, thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.